Just so we know, you all know how to use the chat. Go into your chat box, everybody, and just say hi and where you're from. And let's see if we can get a little networking going on. If you have someone moving into an area where someone says they're from and you've got a referral to send or receive, go ahead and connect with each other. These webinars are great for that. Morning from San Antonio, Chandler, Arizona, it's like 120 in Arizona today. So buckle up.
Oh, what's up, Will? I know Will. Great
Hey, Will.
guy.
Dallas, Fort Worth. Christy's here. Awesome. Hi. Good to see you, Christy. Workman coach. Miami's here. Hilton Head's here. Hi, Jennifer.
Go
Kansas
Chiefs.
City.
Catherine. What a nice always great to see your name.
Catherine joined the Workman team a
Oh,
while
did
ago.
she?
Yeah, she's been with us for a while.
Oh,
She's awesome. She's a staff
she's
coach.
amazing. I've known her for a very long time.
She was one of the bugs in my ear to make sure we connect with fellow.
That's awesome.
Palm Beach is here. Hey, I hope everybody in Texas and in the track of the hurricane named Burl is okay and safe. We've had lots of power outages. I had a couple coaching calls canceled this morning because people were didn't have access to their cell phones and power. So hope everybody's okay. Just know that our prayers are with you and your families, and hoping everybody's staying safe out there. Anna, thanks for turning your video on. Bill, nice to see you. Hi, Christy, the awesome Christy Green.
And
Christina's
there's
here.
some
Nice
familiar faces. There's some familiar names on here. What's up, Christina? I love it.
Louisville's in the house. Mark says Virginia Beach is here. Awesome group.
I don't know why my video won't come on. I keep clicking it.
I don't know either, and you just do your best. All right, everybody. We just want to say hi, Bambi. Welcome. Good to see you. Look how happy you look today. So as you get an invite to be a panelist, we're just inviting you so you'll turn your video on and be an engaged participant. We encourage you to do that, so make sure you do that. If you are trying to log in as an AI assistant, we'll probably take you out of the call. We'll have the call recorded, and one of our AI assistants will send you a copy of the notes. But it's hard to have everybody else's AI assistants in here. It messes with the Zoom. Ryan, you ready to kick butt and get going here?
I love it. I am.
So let's do that. So everybody, I want to just say welcome. My name is Verl Workman. I'm the CEO of Workman Success Systems based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. We have coaches all over the United States and Canada. We specialize in high-performing teams. And we have an unbelievable group of coaches and clients who all work together to do what I call is the wisdom of the crowd. Everybody shares with each other what's working and what's not working, so everybody grows. We believe that greatness is predictable. And if you track and you do the right things, you can get a predictable outcome no matter what's going on in the marketplace. And we found that is absolutely true. With me today, I have Ryan Young, who's the CEO and co-founder of the Young Team as well as fellow. And Ryan is a beast. He runs a high-performing team. And most importantly, he has a servant's heart where he looks to make a difference in the lives of the people that he serves, both on his real estate team and in his software business with fellow. We've recently become acquainted through our coaches and clients who have been using fellow as a product, and what they're doing is they're basically putting their database on steroids, and they're finding new ways of farming and getting information and data out of there that's creating great results. And so as a partner and as a good friend of Workman Success System, Ryan, thank you for being here, and thanks for doing this with me today.
Yeah, super excited to be here. And I love what you said. One of our core values on my real estate team, the Young Team, is I have a servant's heart. And so, I feel like this was meant to be when you just said that. So it's that's what we do. We aim to serve, and excited to be on with a legend, as I like to consider you.
I'm a legend in my own booth. That's what I tell people. My own 10 by 10 or on my own boat, depending on where we are. So we're going to get into it today. We're going to talk about listings, and we're going to talk about all the stuff that's going on in the marketplace. What's interesting right now is that if you think about the combination of things that are affecting real estate, we have the class action lawsuit, we've got higher interest rates, we've got inflation, and we have And we have all of this uncertainty in the marketplace, lack of inventory. And as a result of all those things, agents and buyers and sellers have a tendency to pull back and pause. And when they pull back and pause, what it does is it causes them to not earn any income in every single market. And Ryan, you and I have been around for more than 20 years in real estate, and we've seen the ups and downs in marketplaces. The life events that cause people to move don't stop happening because rates go up or because inflation goes up. People move because of the life events that occur. They get married, they get divorced, they upsize, they downsize, they relocate, they get jobs, they lose jobs. And all these life events that are happening are continuing to happen in our database. But because so many people have pulled back, wondering what's going to happen with all of the uncertainty in the marketplace, that business goes to others who are engaged and fully engaged in their marketing and their connection and the attitude of serving their consumer. And so we wanted to do this webinar today. Let me give you I'm going to open up the title slide and share with you our title. And our title is simply this: List to Last, Control Your Cash Flow and Love Your Life. Those are two things that I believe are absolutely possible. One thing I know is if you're not sure how you're going to get paid, if you'll list more houses, you'll know. There is no doubt how you're going to get paid when you list property. Y'all agree with that? Christy, does that make sense to you? And so, Ryan, you had a recent listing challenge with your group. Tell me a little bit about your challenge. I want to hear about that.
Yeah, so we did the 30-day listing challenge, and it's really cool to see Rob St. John is on here, one of the winners of our individual agent. And it started as me kind of challenging myself and my team and saying, I'm going to set 30 listing appointments in 30 days. And we'll talk a little bit about the young team in a little bit, and I'll show you why listings are so important financially to our business and how we've scaled our business to sell about 500 homes a year and being more listing based. We're normally about 60% listing based. But I basically challenged myself in front of the entire world and basically said, I'm going to set 30 listing appointments in 30 days, despite, being out of production for the past 4 years, strictly out of my database. And it really, kind of went viral and caught some traction, and our team started participating, and then other teams started participating. And what it really opened my eyes up to is, and what I'm most excited about this, any one of us that wants to control or dominate listings has the ability to do so. We just need a strategy. We just need to be intentional about it. And so I think we started showing the world very quickly that if maybe you want to list more properties, or you have a very buyer heavy business, or maybe you have a listing heavy business, but it's a little bit unpredictable, there's some strategies that can help you become a lot more predictable and intentional and kind of build these foundational principles. And it really just, I think, opened up the eyes of the real estate community of saying, I need to have a strategy around generating more listings, and I need to be more consistent around it. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, but it's just crazy how when you talk about controlling your cash flow in scale and efficiency in modeling when it comes to building a real estate team or a real estate business, how listings gives you so much more control and really allows you to do that. So I'm super excited about this.
In all these markets, it was kind of funny because about the same time you're running your 30-day challenge, we launched a 120-day listing challenge. And here, let me give you our numbers. We're halfway in. So we're halfway into a 120-day challenge. We've had 642 listing appointments, 271 new listings taken, 360 offers received, 135 million in new listing volume, 166 listings closed, and 65 million in listing volume closed in just 45 days. And it's really cool to see people just kicking butt in markets where there's no inventory.
Yeah.
I like to say that that's not true. Like, is it when someone says to me there's not inventory, I'm like, no, you just don't have it.
And what's really cool about that, of all those numbers are, and when we launched Fellow, we started looking at forecasting a little bit more. And now I realized how we can apply it to the young team. Those numbers and data that you just provided on the listing side, it really allows you to forecast what Q3 and Q4 are going to look like. And that's something that listings really helps you do. You could apply that to buyer representation agreements, but a lot of times buyer representation is contingent upon inventory hitting the market, right? So buyer representation is a little less predictable when you're thinking of forecasting versus you're looking at, I feel like I don't have a clear picture of what my second half of the year is going to look like. When you're telling those type of leading indicators, whether it's contact dials, contacts, agreements signed, etc., you start to feel really good or concerned about Q3 or Q4. And listings allows you to forecast and create that predictability.
It's so true. It's not a lot of people when they say they don't have any inventory, it's because they don't spend any time looking for it. They're not really actually doing the work. So we're going to talk about that. And can I get everybody's permission to be direct? I'm going to put my coach hat on today, and I just want to tell you what really needs to happen if you want to change the outcome of where you're headed for 2024, because it's not too late to have a great year. And if you've started off and your year hasn't been as good as you thought it was going to be, it's okay, because we can change our behavior today, but you can't do it if you continue doing what you've been doing the first 6 months. We have to shake it up. We have to do things differently. So I talked about high interest rates, inflation, rising costs, class action lawsuit, TNN. That stands for totally negative news. If it's not positive, they don't play it. And so the consumer is getting bombarded with all of this negative crap because it sells, pain sells. And so that's why they get people to tune in. So your consumer, if you put yourself in the seat of a buyer or seller right now, and they're getting bombarded with all of this negative stuff, who are you in this picture? Can you be the person that provides opportunity, options, choices, optimism, and hope? And if you are, then that gives you the ability to intentionally change the way you communicate with the people in your database. This is one of my favorite wheels. This is the emotional intelligent wheel. And if you've never seen this before, this is super cool. And so if you look at what people's emotions are, if you look at the fear emotion, and then orange right there, you see what I'm talking about, Ryan? Fear means that it turns into scared or terrified or insecure or nervous. And that means they're frightened, or they feel helpless, or they feel panic or in fear, inadequate or worried or anxious or mortified or dreadful. All of those negative emotions are what people are feeling right now because they're getting what's getting fed to them by the negative news. And we have this unbelievable opportunity as optimists, as real estate agents, as professionals in the marketplace, to change fear and move it into one of the positive emotions. And we use emotional intelligent languaging in our scripting and the way we communicate to help people understand that they can actually be enthusiastic and optimistic and hopeful. And those all go back to the happiness emotion. And so how do you change somebody from fear to happiness or surprise or to love when they're feeling anger or sadness? And when you recognize and acknowledge the negative things that they're experiencing in their lives by really acknowledging it and then saying, but there is hope and here's why, and then give them a true path or a clear path to success, they start thinking about it. Just yesterday, Ryan, I have to tell you, so at coach training last in the spring, we did a little skit. And in this skit, I decided I was going to play pickleball. And I brought in my pickleball coach. Her name was Priscilla. And now I know you guys think you don't look at me and say, hey, that guy looks like a serious pickleball player. Well, I bought the paddles and I bought the shoes and I bought all of the best. I Googled who's the best pickleball player in the world. And I bought all their stuff and I still sucked. I would get my trash kicked by these 86-year-old people, and then they'd get their walkers and go back to their car. And I'm like, what the heck? And so I hired this coach, and she came in and she broke down everything that I was doing. And she made me work on basic fundamentals. How do you dink the ball? How do you hit it like a pickleball player instead of a racquetball player? And we started working on these basic fundamentals, and all of a sudden I started getting better. Well, Priscilla was at coach training, and she listened as we were teaching our coaches how to be options dealers. Christy, do you remember that talk that Cleve gave? And he talked about how we need to present people with options. We are not realtors, we're options dealers. And she called me after coach training, Ryan. I talked to her last night, and she had gotten out of an ugly divorce. Her and her husband, her ex-husband, were still in the same house. She wanted him out of it because he still got to come to Utah when he relocated to Utah and stay in the house that they had together, but he didn't respect the privacy. And the whole thing was a nightmare, but she felt stuck and she didn't feel like she could move forward. And after hearing that talk on options, called me up and says, what are my options? And so I gave her a bunch of options. We kind of took her down a path. She's now sold out of that home, got all of the money that they had in it, bought a new home, and told me last night that she's ordered a private pickleball court to be put in her yard where she's going to be doing lessons. And she was so excited to tell me that just because we gave a little bit of hope by offering different options, it opened her mind to what might be possible. And we took someone who felt like she was stuck and couldn't move forward and helped them move forward. And what's interesting about it is she is in a real estate family. Real estate agents don't know how to be options dealers, and they don't know how to use emotional intelligence languaging to move it forward. So I just thought that was really cool. So fear and frustration, what does it lead to? Pulling back. I'm going to pull back. I'm going to pause. I'm just going to pull back. It doesn't mean they don't want to move. It just means they don't know what to do. And so when they don't know what to do, they hit the pause button. And we gotta help them hit the play button and move things forward. And so, Ryan, we talked about options. When you're trying to list 30 houses in 30 days, is there more than one option you give people on how to sell their home or what to deal with when they're dealing with a class action lawsuit? What are some of the things that you throw out as options?
Yeah, I mean, I think we lean into options as the young team, and I think it's one of the reasons why it's definitely a pillar of why we've been able to, we list 300 plus homes a year. We focus on optionality to the seller, and we try to find what are pain points that a seller might have or concerns that they have, and then build programs around those. So for example, we have what we call our upfront cash offer. We have where we will basically make you a cash offer on your property, and you can choose your closing date, and you can sell your home without ever going on market. We have what's called our backup cash offer, where you have the ability to put your home on the market, and you have the upside of selling for as much as the market will bear, but you have a safety net with the cash offer sitting behind you within 63 days, that if the market doesn't support, you can always exercise that cash offer. And then lastly, we have what's called our worry-free listing, which is basically like an easy exit or a day-to-day listing agreement where the seller can terminate at any point in time. And some people say, well, but you're taking all the risk if they can terminate at any point in time. And it's like, but it overcomes a large objection that sellers have of, what if you don't do what you say you're going to do? What if, 30, 60 days later, our home hasn't sold? It's a lot easier for us to sit down with a seller and lay out all these options and saying, which one helps you accomplish your goals, right? This is not about our goals. This is about your goals. Which one of these best helps you accomplish your goals? And that's why we provide them with these options. And I feel like, when you get in the game of taking listings at a high level, you get used to dealing with objections, and the more options you can provide gives you kind of the war chest to overcome a lot of those objections. And so we've seen everything. At one point, we were doing a concierge program. We've done staging as additional options, waiting to help the seller net more money, but basically identifying every pain point that a seller might have and trying to create a program around that. Without what you don't want to do is add friction to the sales process, or when you're there, if someone wants to list their home traditionally and their number one priority is netting the most amount of money, you don't want to saturate them or inundate them with options. But it is really nice to have those in your back pocket when someone is talking about potential concerns or objections.
So I love that. What it sounds like to me is you've made it easy to do business with you. You give them lots of options. You've taken away the friction points. I wrote that down. And I sometimes think like we have too much friction in our own sales process. And how do we eliminate that? I think that's a great lesson for all of us to think about. And how do we eliminate friction? How do we make it easy to do business with us? Here's let me give you a couple of options or some of the things we've done. We talk about listing and why listing matters. You and I were talking about this the other day, and as we were preparing for the call, we talked about what really happens when you list a property. You get to leverage all the other agents that have buyers in the marketplace to earn your income. You're going to get paid, and you're leveraging all the other buyers. It takes 2 to 3 hours to list and service a listing, and it might take 20 or 30 hours to represent a buyer. And so when you're thinking about getting the highest return on time away from family, which is the most important thing in my life, I want to make as much as I possibly can with as little time away from my family as possible. Is that a bad goal? Is that like, I want to make a lot of money. I don't want to work that hard. I'm willing to work hard, but I don't want to have to. It also gives us the opportunity to market. When you take a listing, it gives you the opportunity to put your name, your branding, your signs, your door knocking, your open houses. It lets the market know you're actively engaged in the business. So listing is like permission to market, and it's non-offensive. So it gives you all this permission to market. And we've learned that every time you generate a listing, when you work the listing correctly, it creates 1.5 buy-side opportunities for your buyer agent team. And so every time you list, you should sell 2.5 houses, the listing plus 1.5 buy-sides. And so if you focus on listings, it feeds the rest of your business. Ryan, are you finding that to be true in your own team?
Yeah, 100%. And we were talking about this yesterday, and I just want to paint a scenario on why I'm so passionate about listings, and we're going to show you a slide in a little bit. I'm going to show you my own personal team's numbers and the financial numbers on the way we have built the Young team. Run through this scenario really quickly. You know, Verl's a buyer's agent. I'm a listing agent. Verl gets a buyer lead. They want to go look at some houses. He leaves his office. He goes, shows them a house, comes back to his office. They didn't like it. They want to go see some more next week. He goes, leaves his office, shows them a couple more houses, goes back to his office. There was one they really liked, so they want to go back for a second showing. He leaves his office. You get where I'm going with this. All of a sudden, they love it. They want to write an offer. Verl's the one who writes the offer, prepares the offer. Then we have an accepted contract. He sends it over to me. He goes and sits the home inspection, leaves his office, sits there for 3 hours, goes back to his office. He does the final walkthrough. He gives them the keys. Me as the listing agent, I go to their house one time. I do my listing consultation. I am there for an hour and I go back to my office. The entire time that he's out showing them homes, preparing offers, sitting inspections, I'm looking for more listings, right? And if you look at the efficiency of listings, and this isn't to poo-poo buyers, working with buyers or buyer representation, our team still represents hundreds of buyers every year, but it's more just to look at where your highest and best use and where your dollar per hour, right, or return on time invested is where you have the most amount of financial opportunity. And I just think if you start thinking through this lens, and God forbid the deal falls apart, right? All of a sudden he's got to go back and show them more homes. I haven't left my office. I still have that listing with other agents showing it. So I know everyone on here knows it, but I just really want to hammer home the value of scale when it comes to listings and how efficient your business can become when that becomes like the main pillar of everything you do.
It's just absolutely true. And so we talk about focusing on listings, and focusing on listings doesn't mean think about it more. It means take action to generate more opportunities. Here's what I know. We track everything, Ryan. We track dials, conversations, appointments set, appointments met. And this is what we've learned. We've learned that it takes 221 set appointments to get 55 buyer listing agreements signed. It takes 5 minutes per contact or conversation. It takes 18 conversations to make an appointment. We can set an appointment every 90 minutes when we're prospecting for listings. So every 90 minutes, we get a listing appointment. So what it means to you is every 90 minutes is a listing. That means that if the average sale price is $350, that means you make about $10,500 per sale. Depending on what you negotiate for your commission, it's $116 per minute when you're prospecting for listings. What is it that you're spending your time doing in your business right now where you're earning less than $100 a minute? And is it possible you could change those current habits with better habits? Like really, like if you think of all the things you spend on, like if you leave your kids in the morning, you leave your family, your spouses, your significant others, your parents, whoever it is you're leaving, and you say, I'm going to go work, but you're actually doing things that don't generate any revenue. If we were to flip that and turn that into dollar productive activities, it means you make about $7,000 an hour. That means if you can delegate it, if you can hire somebody else to do it for less than $7,000 an hour, you should do it, and then focus on listings yourself. We've kind of gone from a different market. And Ryan, I shared this with you, and I'm going to share this with everybody else. We were in a market where a planner is someone who does a really great plan. They spend their time as a high analytical, coming up with all of the different ways to do things. And with moderate skills and moderate action, they would close a transaction. And this is from one of our master coaches, Mike Cope. And the newer agent comes into the marketplace. The newer agent comes in and they just do everything. They show up at open houses, they knock doors, they cold call, they work the dead lead pile, you know about that. And they do everything you tell them to do. They just get actively involved, and they have enough action that with moderate skills and a moderate plan, they're able to close transactions. And then we've moved into what I call is our skills-based market. And this is the market that we're in today. Is a bunch of agents who, if you could fog a mirror, you could sell a house in the last 3 or 4 years. They made $200,000 and $300,000, all of a sudden finding themselves in a situation where they're not making the money they've made. And they don't understand why everything they did in the last 2 or 3 years isn't working today. It's because they had actions, but they didn't have the skills development that really elevates them and separates them from everybody else. I'm gonna even say it a little bit stronger, Ryan. We've gone from a skills-based market to the professionals. It's kind of like going from a college athlete to the pros. And all of a sudden, if you want to compete in the market today, you got to play in the pros. And it's a whole different level of competition. Ryan can go out and list 30 houses in 30 days because he lives in the professional circle. He's a pro. He's not an average agent doing 7 to 10 transactions a year, hoping that his friends and family call him and turn themselves in. Is that true, Ryan? Or
Yeah, I mean, and speaking of pros, you know what differentiates pros from amateurs is mastery. And the amount of years I invested into skill set, the reason why I could just jump back on the phones and set listing appointments, I was basically, for every 7 contacts I was having, I was setting a listing appointment, was because I invested years and years and years into my skill set. And I spent a lot of time on the phones in 2010, 11, 12, calling expireds and FSBOs. And that's kind of how we started to build our business. But it was just, for me, that skill set is so deeply ingrained and rooted into who I am now, that for me to just be able to go jump on the phone and call people out of our database and set listing appointments was very easy to do, you know?
Yeah, well, and you practice scripts and dialogues.
Yep.
You fail a whole lot making phone calls. People reject you and hang up on you, and you eat rejection for breakfast. I love the agent that says to me, I even get rejected 98 times before I get an appointment. I love that. That means that you're doing the things that you need to do to be successful. Here's a kind of a skills-based market. This will kind of give you an idea. In 2019, it took 167 calls to get a closing. In 2020, that number went down to 134 calls. It got easier. It was an activity-based market. In 2021, fog a mirror, sell a house. It took 127 calls to get the same closing. In 2022, boom, it jumped back up to 165. And in 2023, it went all the way up to 222. And even 24, it's even higher. So you can't do the same thing you were doing in 2019 or 2020 and expect the same result. We have to have greater effort and greater skills and more contacts in order to make the same sale. We can't do the same things. We have to do things differently, and we have to do more of it. We have to be anxiously engaged. We have to lean into the challenges of the marketplace, not sit back and wait and see what happens. Talk to us a little bit about your numbers. I love these slides. When you put these in here, I was like, oh, dang, I love this.
Yeah, it's, look, when we launched Fellow, we were very fortunate, Fellow, we started to scale this seller lead generation platform, and it started to scale really quickly. And I go on all these big stages now, and I kind of am like this tech CEO, right? But really, at the end of the day, I'm just a real estate guy. And the reason why I'm very comfortable talking in these type of formats is because I'm really just talking with my people. Like, I'm at the end of the day, right before here, I came from the Young Team's office. We do a quarterly, what we call go to the board, where we go over our last quarter numbers, and everyone stands up and publicly declares where they are currently, and they make their commitments. And it's just a really important exercise. And so despite building this really big software company, I'm still just a real estate guy. And I wanted to just show these numbers and why listings are really important to the Young Team. The Young Team, we have 15 agents. The average agent on our team sells about 40 homes a year. If you look at the bottom left, you can see, and it's funny because the last 3 years, our average listings has been down. We're 56% versus normally we like to be over 60%. Look at my average listing commission versus my average buyer commission. Despite my average buy price is $425 and my average listing price is $398. So we're seeing about a 3.25% average listing commission and about a 2.25% average buyer commission, right? Now, that is something where I look at it as also a huge opportunity for us to improve our average buyer commission, but we've seen a lot of commission compression. It's also why we're kind of leaning into this new settlement from the buy side and using it as an opportunity to start lifting up our average buyer commission. But here's what's crazy is my average listing partners, if you have a team and you run maybe like a buyer agent listing partner, we have listing agents on our team. Our agents get 30% split on listings. They have a couple little kickers that they can get if it's their own sphere, or if they gross 4.5% for the team by listing it at a straight 7% and giving the co-broke 2.5%. But when I'm 13,000 gross commission last year on the list side, and I'm retaining about 70% of that, it is very easy for me to scale while I've been out of production and building a software company, it's very easy for me to scale from a profit standpoint, right? Like, and one of the things I'm most proud of, while we're doing about 5 million a year in gross commission, we've been north of 20% profit margin the entire time I've been out of production. And I don't think that's possible if we're not listing based. Our average buyer agent gets about 47%. We have this kind of scale where they start at 40 and work their way up to 50. But because we can control the listing opportunities and drive so many listing opportunities to our team members, it allows me as the owner to have leverage of what those splits look like. Our average cost of goods sold right now is sitting around 43%. So as you can imagine, that gives me 57% to play around with, to invest into marketing, to invest into growth, expansion, and that also leaves some profit left over for me. And you obviously know I'm extremely passionate about listings. My team is listing based. Fellow is a seller based platform. But I think a lot of times we don't realize maybe why we've resisted listings. And Fellow works with almost 2,000 teams. And when they first join us, the majority of them are really top heavy on the buy side. And they upload these big databases. And what we see is about 80% of those databases are buyer leads, right? And the reason why we've probably seen people lean into the buy side of the business is, think about it. Buyer leads are mass accessible, right? You can call up Realtor, Zillow, whoever, they will have plenty of leads to sell you. Buyer leads, when they inquire, they're basically saying, I'd love to see this home tomorrow or today, right? It's instant gratification. Buyers are more relationship driven, right? A lot of buyers aren't interviewing multiple agents. They're less transactional. They're just whoever's willing to open up the door. Buyer leads ultimately are going to work with the agent who provides convenience and it has a quicker sales cycle, versus I want you to go to the the mindset side of the seller. Sellers do their due diligence. Sellers interview multiple agents. Sellers are much more transactional and are focused on who can help them net the most amount of money. Sellers are asking you questions like, how long have you been in the business? How many homes have you sold in my area, right? We don't get those questions from buyers. Buyers just say, when can you get me into this house, right? It's a much more relational experience. And sellers have a much longer lead cycle. So a lot of sellers, they do their due diligence. They're looking online. They're looking at who's the top agent, stuff like that. And because of that, sellers normally when they inquire, take a longer time to actually go to market. And I think if you look at the left side versus the right side, there's so much less resistance on the buy side, right? We can just buy a bunch of buyer leads and we can start showing them houses immediately. They're not interviewing us and drilling us. Maybe that will change, right? But the reason why so many people resist the seller side is because it requires some work. It requires a skill set. And the goal is to ultimately help you guys identify more ways to generate more seller leads. So you're going on more listing appointments. So you strengthen those skill sets to start scaling this listing based business. The other cool thing about, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry to interrupt you, but as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about when I first got into real estate and how many new agents, when they first get in, work first-time home buyers. Because they're easier, because you don't think they know more than you because they haven't ever bought a house before. So you feel like you can add value to the transaction. And so we do the easier part of the business. There's millions and millions of buyer leads that are generated. So we can plug in and buy leads. And when somebody else gets a listing, we can work their opens and do those things. It's easier. It's an easier part of the business, and it's okay. But as we move to a skills-based market, it becomes very, very different. And what I love about the seller side of things is I believe that our job as agents is not to sell houses.
Yep.
Like, we don't talk people into buying and selling houses. They buy or sell because they love the house, they hate the house, they need to move, they want to move. There's things about it. They emotionally get involved. They're the ones that choose it. We're a tool in the process. And the only thing we really have to learn how to sell great is ourselves. And so we're not selling houses, we're selling ourselves. And in the listing environment, you have to be better at selling yourselves. With the class action lawsuit and the requirement to get buyer agreements signed, buyer's agents are going to have to improve their skill set in order to be able to compete and learn how to sell themselves, or they're not going to have any buyers either. So that's changing as well, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things I was going to say, and I think you're so spot on. So the young team, we're normally 60% listing based, But when you start to have that listing skill set and you start to be able to identify objections and overcome those objections, and you start competing. And if you're not competing right now on listings, that means you're not going on enough listing appointments, right? You're not, if you're just, every listing you're taking is the friends and family, the relational listing, I'm going to challenge you to start getting uncomfortable and getting into more opportunities, getting in front of more sellers and actually competing against other agents, right? Because that's when you really know you're pushing your boundaries on scaling your business. But what the reason why this is so important for us is the young team, we've always worked by buyer representation, right? Really nothing has changed besides now we can actually disclose how much the buyer is compensating us in that buyer rep agreement. So for us, this isn't foreign. We're used to asking buyers to sign an agreement and make a commitment to us because every seller that we work with does. And that's the muscle that we built, is interviewing and competing. And so all of a sudden sitting down with a buyer is a very similar relationship to a seller. And the thing that I think is really important about this slide is, and Viral, I'm curious, with the majority of the clients that you coach, the young team, our two largest lead sources on the list side is our database, which we have about 45,000 contacts in our database. 33,000 of them are homeowners. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And what happens is we incubate our database, okay? And we basically generate several listings a month out of our database. And then we go and put a sign in the yard. And our number 2 listing lead source is sign calls. And I can't tell you how many people call us that say, hey, I saw you sold the house around the corner from us. Hey, I saw that you sold, my next door neighbor's house. I see your signs everywhere. And the cool thing about that is when we get those sign calls, they go right back into the database and it creates this really nice flywheel. And here's what you are not hearing me say what we do. We're not buying leads, right? We're building our database organically. We're incubating that database. And then that database is creating opportunities that ends up creating more opportunities for our database for us to continue to work around. And that's where our margin really starts to scale. What's not scalable is let's just buy more leads. Let's spend more money on new lead acquisition. And you'll see, roll to that next slide really quick, because I think this is a really good example of what that business model looks like. It's a leaky funnel. We're accepting the industry standard of 2% conversion on digital leads, on buyer leads. And it's like those leads have gotten more expensive. They're more diluted now than ever because the lead that you bought from whatever company you bought it from, someone else bought 3 years ago or 5 years ago. So now leads are in multiple databases, right? There's less inventory to sell them. And so now what's happening is we got addicted over the past decade to lead acquisition, right? And we never had a process in lead incubation and follow-up. And so we have these funnels where we just keep putting more, or buckets, we keep dumping more and more water into them, but they have so many holes that we look at our database not as an asset, but as a liability, right? And a database is just a place to store all these dormant, stale leads that we just couldn't get on the phone the 1 or 2 times we tried. And if you go to the next slide, you'll kind of see this is what the vision, and this is what Fellow really helped agents do. This is the vision of what your database should look like. Your database should be this automated system, this engine that is incubating your leads through automation that is very intelligent and strategic on how you're doing it. And you should have predictable metrics of what that database should be producing from an outcome perspective, and that is something I've gotten super passionate about. Is I've just got to observe, we probably have 35 million contacts uploaded into Fellow. And I get to see the way this works from a really 30,000 foot view on the way database incubation looks like. And I've just observed, working with some of the top teams all over the country, that it's amazing to me how much money we spend on leads month over month, yet we spend very little money, or we have very little strategy or intent around the leads that are actually in our database, the ones that we've already acquired, And before I jump into this, Viral, anything to add to that, just like what you've observed from a database standpoint?
Yep. So you asked early on the percent of, what converts, what are the leads that convert? There is nothing that is even close to the leads that convert out of our databases. We do a thing called the top 50. We work our 3, 2, 1s, which I'll share with you in a minute. There's a There's a strategy behind working your database. And most people, buying leads, here's the thing with buying leads. When you buy leads, you have a perception that you don't have to work for them. It's like
Yep.
crack. You have all these fresh leads coming in, and you know that if you call enough of them, some are going to turn themselves in. People that buy Zillow leads and are willing to pay 35 and 40% of the commission off the top just out for someone else to generate. The reason agents pay so much for those leads is because they don't have to prospect, even though they don't make any money at the end of the day, because it takes away the hard part about doing business. We got into real estate because we like houses, and now we have to work. Well, guess what? You don't get to help people sell their houses if you don't do the work. You have to be willing to put the work in. It's not that hard. I would say that most agents would rather call 1,000 strangers than 5 people in their database that are friends.
Yeah,
And it's
so
because they don't believe they have value in the relationship, and they don't want to be perceived as a slick salesperson trying to convince them to buy or sell. And so if you change your mindset from trying to sell them on something to trying to serve them, and just call to see how you can help. What's going on in their lives? What's going on in real estate? What's going on with rentals or the VRBO they bought during COVID, thinking they would make money on it, and now they're not. There's all these things that are going on in people's lives with real estate, and no one's calling them up and saying, "Hey, how can I help? What's going on?" Just want to reach out and just like
it's so true. And one of the things we'll talk about is, I always say you have to start with service and then work your way down to sales, right? And so what Fellow does is it basically incubates centered around the home value. And the home value is such a powerful message, but it's very low intent, right? So Fellow is focused on turning your database of buyers into homeowners and then incubating those homeowners, leveraging the message centered around your home's value, right? And so what happens is, like Verl said, we don't like to make those phone calls. So what we found with Fellow when we launched it was, if we can automate the outreach by providing something of value to these homeowners, it's going to create engagement. And then what we do is we take that engagement and start to move them through different journeys that works them down the funnel. But I say this because we have significant data, and what we see is that 5% of your database is listing their home every 12 months. So if you have 1,000 people in your database, that's 50 listings year over year. If you have 10,000 contacts, that's 500 listings. And we have some clients with much bigger databases than that. And the reason why we know that is because we actually scan in Fellow every address in your database every day. And we send you an email basically of any one of those addresses that actually listed their home with or without you. So now what's happening is we're actually creating awareness to these agents and teams of saying, here's all of the listings that are taking place within your database that you didn't even know. And sometimes people think that number at 5% seems high, but I like to ask them, well, how many people in your database do you actually know are homeowners, right? Remember, 80% of the databases uploaded into Fellow are buyer leads, because we went on this crazy shopping spree for buyer leads over the past 10 years. And there's very little intentionality to find out where those buyers live and if they own homes. And it's really hard to know if they're listing their homes if you don't even know if they own a home. And so this theory of taking your database, actually finding the homeowners in your database, then incubating or automating messaging to those homeowners to keep them warm, and then communicating with them and reaching out to them as they engage, focusing on service, right? Focusing on their home's value, not trying to sell them anything. And that's how I was able to set those 30 listing appointments. Was I was just reaching out to people that were engaging in Fellow, saying, just checking their home's value. And I'd call them up and say, bro, hey, it's Ryan. I just am really curious what your thoughts are about the value I've been sending over. Would you like me to make any adjustments? Tell me any improvements you've made, right? And what that led to was this really warm value-based conversation, which gave me the permission to say, and I know it's a long shot, but if there was an opportunity to sell, even if it was off market and it made financial sense, would you be open to looking at an offer? You would? Where would you go if you accepted the offer? When would you want to be there? Why there? That's really exciting. And what I found was that leveraging the home value message with all of these homeowners in our database was more of an excuse for me to reach out to them from a service perspective, not trying to sell them. And then naturally the conversation gravitated of them asking me, how's the market? Well, why do you ask? Right. And it just led to a bunch of these people that you would have probably never communicated with, but because we were automating service and reaching out to help them and serve them, it led to a significant amount of opportunities.
How many of you love hearing Ryan as he talks about the dialogue he uses when he calls
Yeah, I go
people?
into the role
As he
play
works
mode all the
through
time.
it,
Sorry about
it's like
that.
butter. It's like frosting on the cake, man. I just listen to it and I'm like, oh man, that's smooth. You know what's one of the most painful things, and I think why our coaches and our clients directed us to Fellow and said you really got to check this company out, is because the pain when you see the people in your database listing with other people is so
Oh
great.
yeah.
It causes you to take action. And we won't do it because we anticipate there's money in our database. But when you can see that somebody else is coming into your database and your relationships and taking listings out of it, that
Yep.
hurts. And the
Yep.
pain of loss is a much greater motivator than the anticipation of pleasure. And so those daily emails of people that are coming out of your database that are listing with other people, if that doesn't cause you to take action, just, hang it up. Go get a
Yeah,
job
well,
somewhere, because
and here's
that
the
is like
funny thing
real.
is, this is what I've observed is it also takes if you have a team, it also allows your agents to take ownership as well. And what I've observed with the young team, and I'm just as guilty as all of us, I I have been getting outscripted by my agents for the last for several years, and my agents have been getting outscripted by the prospects. And what I mean by that is when you start actually getting notified of these opportunities that are going to market, and then you go back into the CRM and say, what happened? How did we lose this opportunity? And maybe you listen to the call and the seller tells your agent, hey, I'm not ready right now. Call me back next summer, or call me at the end of the year or beginning of the year or whatever it is. And the agents just say, okay, I'll do that. And they put a task, but they didn't overcome the objection or ask really, strong, deep questions of understanding if there was an opportunity. And so what happens is I started to realize that my agent's skill set was weak. They were getting outscripted by the seller. And then they were coming back to me and telling me that the leads aren't any good, that the leads are just curious, that they aren't converting, that they don't want to sell their home. And I was saying, okay, well, I need to find more lead sources. If the leads aren't good, I was getting outscripted by my agents instead of now I have the actual tools to go in and say, let's listen to this call. Oh, do you see how he said, call me back in the spring? Well, we never asked questions. We never went deeper. We just took it at face value. And then we got off the phone and then we called someone else. And now that person listed his home 60 days later. And this is how we're helping them build their skill set by them taking ownership.
I like to tell when we teach our salespeople, we teach them that in every conversation, someone's buying and someone's selling, and you have to
100%.
determine who you are in this conversation. Are you buying
100%.
their bull crap, or are you selling? And if you're buying their excuses and you're not out scripting them and you're not really going deeper, then you struggle. I'm going to give a couple resources and tools, and I'm going to give you a system. Is that okay, Ryan? I'm going to go like on steroids for a minute.
Do
So
it.
everybody
Fire it
plug
away.
in. I'm going to give you a couple of things that everybody can do right now to build your database that will create new opportunities. And if you do it and you do it for the next 60 days, I guarantee you'll have more listings on the books. And the first thing I'm going to tell you is 3, 2, 1s. I want you to, I don't care what you use for a database. I don't care if it's Boomtown or Sync or Top Producer or a Follow Up Boss. It doesn't matter. I can show you how to make $1 million a year with a database if you do this. Number one, every day you open up your database, start with the A's, and I want you to contact 3 people in your sphere every day. Just contact them. And use the Ford dialogue. How's your family? How's work? What's going on with real estate? How can I help? And so use that dialogue. And then I want you to prospect every day until you add 2 new people to your database. Your job is to identify new people who will buy or sell in the next 12 months and add them to your database. And then I want you to learn one new thing with your technology. We are inundated with AI and Fellow and technology and tools and systems that are power tools that allow us to put everything on steroids, but we don't take the time to become experts in the tools and resources we have. We just start looking for another thing. I see people changing databases for a feature or tool that their current one already had. They just didn't know it or didn't know how to use it. And they spend hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours learning a new system when all they had to do is plug in and learn their stuff. So 3, 2, 1. So can I ask everyone to do that? Go into the chat box and give me a commitment to call 3 past clients, prospect till you find 2 new customers, learn one new thing for the next 30, 60 days in your business. Who's in? Lisa's in. Monica, give me a thumbs up. Art, come on, let's go. You ready to buckle up and let's go? I dare you to prove to me that it doesn't work. There's my challenge. Okay, Amy's in. Love that. Okay, the next thing is I'm going to give you a couple of things that you can say. Right now, a lot of sellers are wanting to sell, but they don't believe they can move because they'd have to give up their 3.2% interest rate and move into a 6% interest rate, and they think that that's an impediment. So we created a system using artificial and emotional intelligence languaging where there's a story, and I need you to read the story out loud when you download it, a script, a tool, and a resource which helps them understand that what our job is as their agent is to help them offset the difference between those interest rates in our negotiation. We can do it with interest rate buy downs. We can do it with seller concessions. We can do it with builder concessions. There's all of these things we can do in helping them buy a new home, which allows them to sell their current home if they understand our interest rate offset program. I want you to make sure that you understand when you're talking about a new system or you're selling or giving options, that you use proprietary language and name it. So when we practice our role plays, we have an automated AI role play bot. We can go in and we can say to our role play bot when we're practicing, I want to do a seller's concerned about the interest rates and they don't want to sell because of the higher rates. And the objective is to set the appointment. It'll say, okay, great. Once you put it all in there, the first thing that the AI bot will say is, well, I do need to sell my home, but I'm concerned about buying a new house with a new interest rate. I'll say, oh man, have you heard about our interest rate offset system? And they're like, what's that? I'm like, oh, I got to show it to you. It's not something I can really explain over the phone, but we have a whole system designed to offset the difference over the next 7 years. And it's incredible when you see it opens up other options. You'd like to see how that works? I can do Tuesday at 1 or Thursday at 6, and we give them a couple options and we set the appointment. Use the system. There's another one. Everyone wants to talk about the class action. They think that the class action lawsuit is a disadvantage or something that's going to hurt realtors. I believe new models are going to arise. I believe there's going to be big differences. I'm talking at Inman in Las Vegas in a couple of weeks. And in my talk, I'm talking about the team of 2030 and how I believe and what I believe the team is going to look like. Because I think it's going to be drastically different. If you think it's all going to be the same after all this class action lawsuit stuff settles, you are big mistaken. I think that new models are going to arise because when there's disruption, that's what happens. And so we have to learn how to take the class action lawsuit and turn it into our advantage. And so we wrote the class action advantage system. It's a story, it's a tool, it's a resource, it's scripts for buyers and sellers on how to turn the dialogue into a advantage. And I'm giving this to everybody, by the way. So I'm going to give you a download link here in just a minute where you can do it. I just want to give you some tools or resources so that you're armed to the teeth with what to say and how to say it when you have a conversation with a prospect that brings up class action lawsuit. There's a reason, Ryan, that our clients grow. On average, a Workman Success client grows 65% the first year, 137% by year 3, and over 247% by year 5. And it's consistent across the board. Greatness is predictable when you understand that it's the activities you focus on that will get you the results. Not the activities you thought about doing, but it's the ones that you actually do. And we do that. People ask me all the time, Ryan, who we coach. I was with, I don't know how anybody besides me excited about the Olympics? Like, I love the Olympics. I know it's off topic, Ryan, but do you like watching the Olympics?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I've been watching the Olympic trials, the track and field and the gymnastics trials.
I was watching the soccer, the Copa, and I mean, it's like just so cool to see country versus country. Like yeah.
Anyway, I love the competition. Well, a few years ago, I got hired by John Neighbor, who is the president of U.S. Olympians, to create a coaching program. He writes a book every year called Awaken the Olympian Within. He does research on all these gold medal winning Olympians, and then he puts them in an updated version of Awaken the Olympian Within. And then when you get your gold medal, you get hired to go out and speak. And we built a program for them called Team USA Coaching. And so when they go out and speak, they do gold medal winning formulas for businesses and entrepreneurs, and they have all these different systems. It's so cool. Anyway, so I got to work with all these great Olympians with all these great medals and how they did it and how they think. And I asked John Neighbor one time, who has 4 gold medals and 3 silver medals in swimming. And I said, John, who do you coach? Who do you coach? And he says, Verl, he says, the best way for me to describe that to you is, have you ever seen a kid at the park with a puppy on a leash, and that puppy is pulling that kid through the park? I'm like, yeah, I got that. He goes, I coach that puppy. He says, if I have to motivate you or put meat in front of your nose or kick you in the can to get you going, I don't have the time or energy for that. He says, I coach that puppy. And so we've taken that philosophy at Workman. And if you're that puppy on the leash and you know that there's another level and you need help getting there and you want someone to just point you in the right direction and make sure you have the necessary course corrections in your journey to hit 7 figures or beyond, then that's who we coach. Raise your hand, say, I want help, sign up for a coaching consultation. We'd love to talk to you. There's no cost or obligation. We just want to talk to you. We're going to give you, I asked Ryan when we put this together to give us something that would make a difference in business, as in everyone's business and life. And he gave us this right here. He gave us his playbook on how he generated 30 listings in 30 days. And it's the actual playbook. We're going to give you the 3-2-1 system, the interest rate offset, the class action advantage, the entire system. We're going to give it to you as a download. Go to this right here. Just everybody grab your phones, grab the QR code, go in and tell us you want it. You'll be able to download it. This is our serve regardless of opportunity gift to each of you. We've learned that people will copy everything except the hard work. And I wonder if you're going to be the agent on this call that's willing to put the effort in to do the work and actually not just copy this. You know, Ryan, if I take your playbook and I follow it, what do you think the results would be?
You're not setting some listing appointments out of it. I did something wrong.
Right? What if I suck and only did 15 in 30 days? How many of that, would that be game changing for a lot of you? What if you just did 5 in 30 days, 5 listings, and that's $15,000 or $25,000? It changes the outcome of your summer. The activities that you focus on right now aren't going to pay you in July or even August. But what you do right now is you take this 30-day playbook and you execute it like religiously for the next 30 days. Your September, October, and November will be set. And all of a sudden you'll have all this business coming in when everybody else is still sitting on the sidelines pausing. Right now is the time to take action and to improve your skills and to practice the scripts and the dialogues. The other thing is there were people on the call, Ryan, that were asking about, like, what does Fellow do? You guys have a webinar tomorrow coming up, and I think we put the link in here. I encourage everybody to get on it. Schedule a demo.
And super excited. You know, like if listings is your number one priority, Fellow is the pillar of most of the top teams around the country who are really leaning into listings. And, you know, we're really excited with some of the stuff that we're doing with, you know, Workman Success Systems. And we're going to offer some really big discounts to this network. And we're really excited about just, you know, the partnership and collaboration. Want to make sure that we're taking care of the people that are investing their time, not just from a coaching perspective, but also that are really focused, you know, excited about converting their or moving their business into seller based. And just one thing on that listing, 30-day listing challenge, you don't have to be a Fellow user for that to apply to your business. You just follow it, right? It just walks through the scripts I use, the people that I was communicating with, the lowest hanging fruit that should be in your database, that you should start with, right? And the way I approached those 30 days, and once again, to Verl's point, if you just follow it, you're gonna get some listings. The only thing that it does not do is actually talk to the prospects and go on the listing appointments for you. That maybe will be our next venture, me and Verl's next venture. But if you just follow it, you step by step, you will set listing appointments. And really excited that, you know, the real estate industry is really leaning into this seller focused business. And, you know, that's what we're passionate about.
I love everything you shared with our group today, Ryan. Thank you for just being open and transparent on how to generate the listings and how to create more opportunities for everybody. There's tremendous opportunity out there, everybody. You just have to decide you want to go get it. We don't create any new business. I want you to think about this. All we do is take other people's. And so you have to decide if you want to be on the acquiring market share or the giving up of market share side of the transaction. If you're not anxiously engaged in your database, you're not doing your 3-2-1s, you don't have the data that is telling you who's moving and who's likely to move, then you're in the business of giving up market share. And I want you to open up your arms and take that market share back. Let's have a great rest of 2024, everybody. I'm sure we'll see you on an upcoming webinar. On behalf of everybody at Workman Success, Fellow, and the Ryan Young team, thank you for being here. Ryan, thanks for everything. Final thoughts?
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.